"Don't stop, please," the old woman whispered through the rain, her voice trembling, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Jamal hesitated, his hand on the tractor's lever, unaware that this one decision would either keep him trapped in poverty forever, or change his life in ways he could never imagine. The rain had been falling for hours, soaking the dry, cracked earth of Jamal's small farm into thick, stubborn mud. Every drop felt like both a blessing and a curse. He needed the rain for his crops, but too much of it would drown the fragile hope he had planted weeks ago. His clothes clung to his body, his boots heavy with sludge, but he kept working. Because when you're poor, you don't get to stop. Jamal had inherited the land from his father, 10 acres of uneven soil, worn tools, and a lifetime of debt. People in the nearby town called him stubborn. Some called him foolish for refusing to sell the land and move on. But Jamal wasn't just holding on to dirt, he was holding on to dignity. As thunder rolled across the sky, he finally gave in and turned his tractor toward the narrow road leading home. That's when he saw her. A frail old woman stood by the roadside, drenched from head to toe, her thin shawl useless against the storm. She looked out of place, too delicate for the harsh countryside, too still for someone stranded in danger. Jamal slowed, his mind racing. He barely had enough to survive himself. Helping her could mean losing time, risking his already failing harvest. He almost drove past. But then she lifted her eyes, tired, pleading, and strangely calm. "Don't stop, please," she said softly. Something in her voice cut through his hesitation. Jamal sighed, stopped the tractor, and climbed down into the rain. "You'll catch your death out here," he muttered, helping her onto the seat. "Where are you headed?" "Anywhere dry," she replied with a faint smile. He brought her to his small farmhouse, 1 room, creaky roof, and just enough space for a bed and a stove. He gave her his only blanket, lit a fire, and cooked the last of his stored rice without a second thought. That night, as the storm raged outside, Jamal listened to her quiet breathing as she slept. He didn't know her name. He didn't know her story. All he knew was that he couldn't leave her out there. And somehow, deep down, he felt like this moment mattered more than anything else he'd done in his life. Morning came with silence. The storm had passed, leaving the fields soaked but glistening under the rising sun. Jamal woke up to find the woman already sitting outside, watching the horizon. "You should rest more," he said. "I've rested enough," she replied. "You've done more than most would." Jamal shrugged. "It's nothing." But she looked at him carefully, as if measuring something unseen. "No," she said. "It's everything." Before leaving, she handed him a small, worn card. "If you ever need help, come find me." Jamal chuckled lightly. "Ma'am, I don't even have money for seeds. I wouldn't know where to begin." "You will," she said, her eyes steady. "And when you do, don't hesitate." Then she walked away down the road, disappearing as quietly as she had come. Days turned into weeks. The rain had damaged more than half of Jamal's crops. His savings were gone. Debt collectors had started circling again, their threats sharper each time. He tried everything, working longer hours, borrowing tools, even skipping meals, but nothing was enough. One evening, sitting on the edge of his empty field, he pulled out the card she had given him. It had an address. Nothing more. He stared at it for a long time. Then, with nothing left to lose, he made a decision that would change everything. If you think helping a stranger never comes back to you, what happened next will make you question everything you believe. The journey to the city felt like stepping into another world. Tall buildings replaced open skies, and polished cars sped past him like he didn't exist. Jamal clutched the card tightly as he stood in front of a massive glass building, unsure if he even belonged there. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. The lobby alone was bigger than his entire farm. People in suits moved quickly, speaking in low, urgent voices. Jamal felt their eyes on him, his muddy boots, his worn clothes, but he pushed forward. "I'm here to see," he hesitated, glancing at the card, "the owner." The receptionist looked confused at first. But the moment she saw the card, her expression changed. "Please, wait here," she said, suddenly respectful. Minutes later, he was escorted into a private elevator. His heart pounded as the doors opened into a luxurious office overlooking the entire city. And there she was. The old woman stood by the window, no longer fragile, no longer hidden under layers of wear. She wore an elegant suit, her posture strong, her presence commanding. Jamal froze. I don't understand," he said. She turned, smiling warmly. "I believe you do. You're a businesswoman," she said simply. "One who's spent years searching for something money can't buy." Jamal shook his head. "Why me?" "Because you didn't ask who I was," she replied. "You didn't ask what you'd get in return. You saw someone in need, and you helped." She walked closer, her gaze unwavering. "Do you know how rare that is?" Jamal swallowed hard. "I was just doing what anyone should." She smiled. "But not everyone does." She gestured toward the window. "I built everything you see from nothing. But somewhere along the way, I lost trust in people. So I started testing them." "Testing?" Jamal asked. "Yes. Disguises. Situations. Moments where people show their true selves." She paused. "Most fail." "And me?" he whispered. "You didn't." She handed him a folder. Inside were documents, land ownership papers, financial plans, investment proposals. "I want to invest in your farm," she said. "Not just money. Resources. Equipment. Training. You'll own it all. I'll simply guide you." Jamal's hands trembled. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because kindness like yours deserves more than survival," she said softly. "It deserves a future." Tears filled his eyes as years of struggle, doubt, and exhaustion finally broke free. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "Say you'll accept," she replied with a gentle laugh. And he did. Months later, Jamal stood on his land, now transformed. Green field stretched farther than ever before, new equipment hummed in the distance, and workers moved with purpose and pride. But the biggest change wasn't the farm. It was him. He hadn't just been given a chance, he had proven he deserved one. As the sun set, he remembered that rainy night, the moment he almost drove past. One small decision. One act of kindness. And everything changed. Because sometimes, the people who look like they need saving, are the ones quietly deciding who deserves to be lifted. And the question is, when your moment comes, will you stop? If you think Jamal's life changed the moment he walked into that glass building, you're wrong. Because the real test didn't begin when he was chosen, it began when he was given everything he had ever dreamed of, and more. At first, it felt unreal. Jamal would wake up before sunrise, just like he always had, but now instead of broken tools and empty soil, he stood surrounded by opportunity. New machinery lined the edges of his land. Fresh crops grew in perfect rows. Workers greeted him with respect, calling him, "Sir," a word he had never imagined being used for him. But with every new blessing came a new weight. Running a farm at that scale wasn't just about hard work anymore, it was about decisions. Big ones. Decisions that could affect not just his life, but the lives of everyone working under him. The old woman, who now introduced herself as Miss Evelyn, visited often. She didn't interfere, but she observed. "Success isn't about what you're given," she told him one morning as they walked through the fields. "It's about what you do when you have it." Jamal nodded, though the truth was, he was afraid. Afraid of failing. Afraid of losing everything. Afraid that maybe, just maybe, he didn't belong in this new world. The pressure started to show when a large corporation approached him with an offer. They wanted to buy his entire farm. The amount they offered was more money than Jamal had ever seen in his life. Enough to secure comfort for generations. Enough to never worry again. His workers whispered about it. Some encouraged him to take the deal. "You've already won," one of them said. "Why risk losing it all?" That night, Jamal sat alone on his porch, staring at the fields that once represented struggle, and now represented everything. He thought about his father. About the years of hardship. About the night in the rain. And for the first time since everything changed, he felt uncertain. When Miss Evelyn visited the next day, she didn't ask about the offer. She simply looked at him and said, "What does your heart say?" Jamal exhaled slowly. "My heart says this farm isn't just land. It's a chance, not just for me, but for everyone here." "Then why are you hesitating?" she asked gently. "Because I'm scared," he admitted. "What if I make the wrong choice?" She smiled faintly. "Then you'll learn. And that will make you stronger than any safe decision ever could." Her words stayed with him. The next morning, Jamal gathered everyone, his workers, their families, even neighbors who had once doubted him. "I've been offered a fortune for this land," he began. Murmurs spread through the crowd. "But this farm was never just mine," he continued. "It belongs to every person who believed, who worked, who stayed when things were hard." He paused, his voice steady now. "I'm not selling." Silence fell. Then, slowly, it turned into something else: pride. Relief. Hope. Jamal didn't just keep the farm, he expanded it. He created jobs for people who had none. He offered fair wages, training, and opportunities for others to start their own journeys. And something unexpected happened. The community changed. Where there was once struggle, there was now growth. Where there was once doubt, there was now belief. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Miss Evelyn stood beside him once more. "You passed the second test," she said. Jamal looked at her, surprised. "Second test?" "The first was kindness without expectation," she explained. "The second was integrity under pressure." "And, was there ever any doubt?" he asked. She smiled. "Only the kind that makes the story worth telling." Jamal chuckled softly, shaking his head. "You know," he said, "if I had driven past you that night." "But you didn't," she interrupted. "That's the point." They stood in silence, watching the land breathe with life. "I used to think being rich meant having money," Jamal said after a moment. "Now I think it means having the chance to change lives, including your own." Miss Evelyn nodded. "And you've done both." As the stars began to appear, Jamal realized something powerful. His story wasn't about luck. It wasn't about being chosen. It was about a simple decision, made in a moment when no one was watching. A decision to care. A decision to act. A decision that proved that even the smallest kindness can echo louder than the biggest fortune. And maybe that's the real secret no one tells you. The world doesn't change because of power or wealth. It changes because of people, who choose to stop in the rain.